A lot of people still get confused whenever I mention that I'd like CarPlay on my Tesla or on Rivian, and it's one of the reasons I'm super pumped and excited to get my Aptera, because they fully intend to support CarPlay. And a lot of people just say, well, what's the big deal? Just use the onboard display. You know, Tesla and Rivian have really big, very powerful software teams, and every day Tesla's adding more and more apps and more features to their main display, and, you know, we recently just got YouTube Music and Prime Music and all that jazz, but in my opinion, there's actually deeper reasons behind CarPlay. It's not just a slight incremental, like, oh, just tweak this one thing with the display. It's actually a big fundamental difference, in my opinion, with the way these companies are independently run. It's one of my few complaints. There's not a lot with Rivian, but RJ, when giving answers to people about why they've actively chosen not to support CarPlay, despite knowing and full well having the capability to, of course, they're a big company, it all comes down to control. It's like having a streamlined experience that's being run and maintained by one company, and they don't want to give up control of their main display. And I'm sure Tesla feels very similarly, even though they won't give us as direct a reasoning why on public record. But in my opinion, this is going to be a growing issue as EV adoption progresses, because what I've noticed both Tesla and Rivian are doing, both in my opinion some of the biggest companies out there that have chosen not to support CarPlay, is they add in a lot of CarPlay features like satellite navigation or stop sign and stop light detection and music streaming directly controlled from that main display as a paid add-on. And this is one of the few things Tesla actually does a little bit better, in my opinion. For Tesla, it's $10 a month to have access to premium connectivity, at least for now. Very good chance of that price going up over time, I'm sure, which may not sound like a lot, especially because I know a lot of people in the EV community have spent $50, $60, some of you over $100,000 on your Tesla. So when you've spent that much money on your car, you're like $10 a month, or maybe in a few years it goes up to $12 a month. What's the big deal? But as EV adoption is progressing, and as Tesla and Rivian are both pursuing more affordable vehicle options out there, and there's companies like Aptera that are hoping to launch, you know, sub $40,000 range, once you're targeting lower and lower price ranges, that membership is now going to start feeling annoying to more and more customers out there because they're more and more price conscious. You know, sadly, in my opinion, like over 80% of people buying new vehicles are financing them. So it's not like they're dropping $40,000 in cash on these more affordable EVs and then just, oh yeah, tack on a $10 a month fee after that. A lot of people are already getting frustrated and annoyed with how many memberships there are these days, and they don't want to be bombarded and reminded all the time that, oh yeah, to access this feature or this feature, you need to have another membership. And I think the truth is, CarPlay, for a lot of different brands out there, saves a membership, particularly because it lets you control your music playing apps directly from the car's main display, and it also grants you a lot of those features that Tesla and Rivian are charging extra for. In the case of Rivian, they're already charging $15 a month for Connect Plus in order to give you features that you could technically get for free if the vehicle supported CarPlay. Not to mention grant you access to way more apps than what Tesla and Rivian are ever going to be able to support on their main displays. And I think supporting CarPlay is an acknowledgement that so many of us basically live on our phones now. Our phones do so much for us. They have so much data and so much software baked in already. And I don't think it's unreasonable at all to just want an extension of our smartphone experience onto that main display, because we're already paying for cellular data on our phones, and people would much rather use that phone data that they're already paying for and have that do the heavy lifting for them on their main car display. That's one of the reasons I'm super thankful and grateful that Aptera is realizing CarPlay is an asset, not a liability, because it saves you a bunch of time and money on the software development cycle. Instead of having to build in all of these navigation features or third-party app supports, you basically just knock over one domino and all of these other features get knocked over with it. Whereas if Aptera or Tello Trucks even decided we're going to build our own operating system from the ground up, we don't want to rely on Android Auto or CarPlay, we're going to do everything in-house all on our own, that's a lot more software engineers that you have to hire. That's a lot more time that the OS has to go through baking and patching bugs and making sure everything works, and having to design your own navigation system, having to build in the cellular connectivity to interpret the data, build it on top of another company's map data, and route in your own navigation software to the whole thing. All of this takes money and time that I think makes sense that these younger startup companies that don't have billions of dollars of cash to burn through are like, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. We would much rather just piggyback off of your phone, because most people buying these state-of-the-art EVs are are the type of people to have smartphones. That's kind of just the world we live in these days. Even people who hate smartphones have smartphones now, and people are keeping in touch with their loved ones, so they're gonna have a phone bill of some kind. And some of us out there who are more price conscious and using services, not a sponsor by the way, but my personal carrier is Mint Mobile, and a lot of my friends and family members are on that service because it's only like 15 bucks a month. They're not the only ones with great deals, by the way. US Cellular is another great choice. Visible has some really good low price unlimited data plans out there. So just trying to say I'm not biased towards one carrier, but some of these carriers are only charging 15 bucks a month, and that's why a lot of people went with them, because they liked the affordability of it. So now, as EVs are getting more and more affordable, and Rivian is targeting lower and lower price points for the R2, and I'm sure the R3 is going to be even cheaper than the R2, probably in the sub $40,000 range, and Tesla's talking about potentially offering like $25,000 cars, or maybe less than that in years to come. People who buy those types of affordable vehicles are going to care if they're buying a vehicle that starts asking them, oh, you want to have satellite imagery, or you want to know where the stoplights and the stop signs are on the display. Oh, well, that's going to cost you an extra 15 bucks a month. That's basically doubling their phone bill just to access something that could be free if the manufacturer decided to support CarPlay. Not to mention all of the money and time and resources that go into designing your own in-house operating system. That pushes out your break-even point. I'm not trying to be a Rivian doomsdayer or anything. I think they're gonna make it, and I love Rivian's products, and I wish them all the best. I think they've got an amazing hardware team, and the software team is honestly quite good in itself, but having that software team pushes into the cost of manufacturing and maintaining the vehicle, which means it will technically take longer for Rivian to break even than it would have if they skimmed down on their software team and found a way to be more capital efficient with their maintaining and design on the vehicle. And that's part of the reason I think Aptera is probably going to break even as a company before Rivian or Lucid do. Even though they're not delivering as high a volume vehicle, even though, yes, three-wheeled autocycles don't have as wide as an addressable market as something like a sedan or an SUV or a pickup truck, but that's the beauty of Aptera being so cost-effective with their spending and making sure that, no, they don't spend $1 billion on their infotainment. That means they only have to sell around 6,000 units a year to break even, and that one factory in San Diego is going to be capable of building more than that, and the pre-orders and the demand we've seen from the events, I think, is quite telling that Aptera doesn't need to outsell the Tesla Model Y in order to be a successful, profitable company. They could easily ramp up to 20,000 units a year just at their San Diego facility and make a profitable vehicle that would be substantially cheaper than Lucid or Rivian. And of course, Aptera has plans at expanding factories, and I'm sure lowering prices over time, unlocking more demand, and of course offering more vehicle models down the road and all that. But my point is, it's not just a matter of flipping a switch of like, oh yeah, some people want CarPlay, what's the big deal? No, this is a matter of people wanting their phone because they're already having to pay for that, and phones aren't going anywhere, to do the heavy lifting for their vehicle instead of having to double their phone bills just so that Tesla and Rivian can sustain and support their big software teams that are having to redesign everything from the ground up that a lot of these trillion-dollar companies like Apple and Google are already designing for. There's already great Android Auto software out there. There's already great CarPlay software that both Apple and Google are developing to try to make better and better each year, and that's money that Apple and Google are spending to improve the in-car experience that Aptera or maybe Lucid or Tello are not going to have to spend, because they're saying, no, we don't need to develop all of that stuff. We would rather the big trillion-dollar companies that are already designing state-of-the-art navigation software and infotainment for your phone that can now be casted wirelessly or wired onto the car's main display, and that makes the profitability for those companies much easier. And I understand a lot of people are concerned, including RJ from Rivian, about having that simplified, streamlined experience, and they don't want to give up control over their car's main display. But what I think Aptera will prove, as I saw in my factory tour when I got a chance to, at least in VR, play around with the Aptera software that's going to be on the production builds, which is like 1,000% better than the software that's on the Gamma prototype. What Aptera has taught me just with these quick little demos is that there are really, really great ways to implement CarPlay in a way that is seamless and intuitive and makes it feel like it's part of the OS. It doesn't have to be this giant drastic change between, oh, that's the Rivian or the Tesla OS, and oh, okay, that's the Tesla OS. There are ways to make it all feel very clean and very integrated, and it just comes down to being creative with the software. It's not necessarily about having complete control over the entire operating system and every little thing it does. No, that's why our iPhones and Androids have app stores, and in some jurisdictions, they allow sideloading even in alt stores, because Apple and Google know that they can't in-house develop every single app and every single use case you're looking for on your phone. No, the experience and the hardware is actually much more enriched when it's open to third parties, and there are other companies, other developers that can enhance the hardware experience and make it better, and Apple and Google don't have to front all of the money for that. They can rely on those third parties to do the work for them. It's a mutually beneficial relationship, and simultaneously, while Aptera is doing a great job with their much smaller software team on optimizing CarPlay within the car's experience, the big companies like Apple and Google are also working on ways for their software to have more control over the in-car experience, so it's not just doing music and navigation, but it can also do the speedometer, and Apple has showcased that there are ways for CarPlay to take over more of the car's functionality, even if it's just a single display. The most recent demos at DubDub this year showcased that CarPlay has the potential to basically take over an entire Tesla Model 3 and Y display and cover all of the necessary information that you'd expect from your vehicle. That's a lot of refinement, that's a lot of improvement in software development that technically Tesla doesn't have to pay for, and I know the guy in charge of Tesla really loves cutting costs and has been known to fire off whole teams. So if down the road Tesla or Rivian are looking more tight, I think a really great demand lever they could pull if they're financially struggling is just giving over more control to Android Auto or CarPlay, and a lot of people might actually prefer it to the in-house software that Rivian and Tesla come up with. But that's just why I feel so passionate about it. I've been very disappointed consistently with the Tesla navigation, and I know I'm not the only one. I've seen countless reviews, especially from people buying used Teslas because they're on a budget and they don't want to spend $40,000 on their EV, so a lot of these guys are spending $10,000 on used Model S's or $20,000 on used Model 3s, and they miss CarPlay because they're used to having it on their older vehicles, and they want to go electric and they want to buy an affordable EV, but they're always annoyed and frustrated with the fact that Tesla makes them use the in-house navigation software, which is just straight up not as good, or asks you for money to stream music, stream podcasts, and have more navigation features. People don't want to double their phone bills, okay? That's all I'm saying. That's why CarPlay is important, and that's why I'm very excited to have it on my next vehicle with the Aptera. Definitely gonna use it as much as possible, and I can't wait to try it more. Thank you to everybody supporting this channel directly. It seriously helps us out a ton, as does just watching these videos, so thanks again. Have an excellent rest of your day.